So he thought it was a projection of the infantile world onto the broader world. And it's a powerful critique. I think sometimes it's true. And the death anxiety people, the terror management people who basically developed their theories from a book by, the book's called The Denial of Death. I'll remember the author in a moment. Anyways, it doesn't matter. The theory was broadened out to propose that your belief systems as such provided you with that protection. And then there was a bit of a variation of that theory, which was your vision of yourself as an illusory climber up a value hierarchy also protected you. Now, exactly how it protected you was never really explained. And I'm not taking issue with Becker, Ernest Becker, who wrote the book. Becker's a smart guy. It's a great book. It's dangerously wrong, but it's a great book. Well, lots of great books, you know, they're wrong in an extraordinarily interesting way, and that can make them a great book. I think Becker's wrong because he assumes that everything we do to cope with death anxiety is actually an illusion, and I think that's a terrible thing, terrible idea. It's an extraordinarily dangerous idea, and I also don't believe it's true, for reasons I'll talk to you about later. Anyways, you can sort of see that, so then we could lay that on top of the expectation theory in some sense, right? Because basically what the expectancy theory people do, like Gray, is they assume, okay, novelty itself is both threatening and incentive rewarding. So it's threatening because God only knows what might happen to you if you run into something novel. And it has an incentive reward element because if you dig around in the novelty, you never know what sort of treasure you might bring to the surface. And so people have an ambivalent relationship with novelty. And I think you can actually understand how that ambivalent relationship works if you think about the hierarchy again. So here's the rough proposition. If an anomaly emerges at the lowest level, the highest resolution level, then it's sort of interesting. You know, so a baby might be playing with a fork and, you know, find out that the fork makes a tinging noise when he hits it on the table. Now, that doesn't terrify the baby. It's funny though, you know, you see babies on YouTube now they get absolutely terrified if their mother sneezes or sometimes if she laughs, you know, so anyways, but whatever. If the baby sort of mastered a fork, then the fact that it makes a tinging noise is going to make him curious, and that's an incentive reward phenomena, more than frightened. You know, it's going to depend to some degree on the baby's level of neuroticism, and it might also depend on how close the baby is to the mother, because it actually turns out that maternal proximity modulates the expression of negative emotion in children. And touch really does that, by the way, which is quite cool. And that's direct physiology. Touch is calming, and it's also analgesic, which is quite cool. So it quells pain. So, okay, so anyways, the baby is, you know, making this tinging noise, and he finds that quite interesting because it never happened before. And so he's curious enough about it to replicate it, to do it again. And he's under the control of his psychomotor approach systems, and they mediate exploration as well as positive emotion. But, you know, if a great big dog comes bounding in, well, the dog has teeth and it's big and it, you know, maybe it's got a deep bark and all that, so it's associated with unexpected movement, power, and predatory features like, you know, lots of babies, let's say toddlers, will run and hide behind their mother. That's a little bit more novelty than they can really tolerate. And so you might think that whether you find something positive or negative when it's anomalous depends on how high up in the hierarchy the threat apparently exists. Okay, now, here's another corollary. Let's assume that before you build your map of the world, which you could think about as a map of expectancy, or you can think about as a map of desire, or of how to fulfill desire, or you could think about it as a map of how to organize your body and your thoughts in the world so that when you express that in the world delivers you what it wants. And I think that's the most accurate terminology. Okay, the idea there is that as you build up and differentiate this map, you bring the anomaly under control, because you reduce it from God only knows what it is to something you can either use or ignore. and that regulates your nervous system, chronically. So the a priori phenomena is novelty, and that would be equivalent to the phenomenologist's thing that shines forth. Same idea, completely different derivation. And then you build a model that inhibits it, and the rule is the model inhibits it if, when you act out the model, it delivers what you want it to deliver, which is kind of a form of pragmatism from a philosophical perspective. So you understand that. So then the next proposition is that model inhibits anxiety. Okay? Now you can see that that idea is akin to the idea that your culture inhibits death anxiety, although I would say it's a more delineated model, and it explains it better. Part of the problem with the death anxiety idea is that, first of all, your culture is not in your head, right? Where's your culture? And your beliefs. It's around you. Yeah. So a big part of the culture is the fact that you're all sitting there, you know, basically clones of each other, doing exactly the same thing in this room at exactly the same time. That's the damn culture. And it means that you can all ignore each other and concentrate on something else. And so the culture is all, like, it's the floor beneath your feet, it's the ceiling over your head, it's the car you drive to work, it's the, you know, it's the traffic light system that pretty much everybody attends to. So in some sense, the culture is actually the match between the technologies and webs of comprehension that the individuals use in the world and the world. It's the match. It's not the phenomena itself, and it's certainly not only what you believe in your head, which is, you know, a little too much on the psychoanalytic end. It doesn't take into account the pragmatics of culture, which are the things we act out, and the technological phenomena that exist, and the whole web of game-like structures those are all embedded in. So that would be a Piagetian idea, right? All this stuff's organized in very much high-order games. And as long as it works, the way you think will work in the world, so that keeps your anxiety under control, because there's no mismatch, but even better, not only are you not afraid of death at every moment, but you actually don't die, which is even better than not being afraid of death, right? Because you're not freezing to death in here, and there's no insurrection, and the probability that you're going to get run over on the way home is pretty damn low as long as you follow the rules. And so we should never remember that culture is not only represented in the interior space, it's not only beliefs, it's actions, and we should also remember very, very carefully that it's distributed in the world. Okay, so back to the match-mismatch idea. So you've got this map of what effects your behaviors are going to have in the world when you implement them. And sometimes that match works, in which case you're pretty happy, because that's an incentive reward. You're moving towards your goal, and it's happening. Not only that, and this is a secondary thing that the behaviorists could never get a handle on because they didn't use hierarchical representations in this way. One of the advantages, I mean, imagine that you're trying to pick someone up, and it's going pretty well. Well, there's two sources of reward there. One is, it's going pretty well. The second is, you're the sort of person who, in this situation, can implement a strategy that's going well, right? So not only is it a signal that you're making progress, it's a signal that the structure that you're using to guide your actions and your perceptions while you're making progress is working. So it validates the whole damn theory, and, you know, that will echo through your entire hierarchy of presupposition.